Are you a season ticket holder?
No, I always paid at the gate. Me and 50,000 others. My father was. My father had a season ticket. My father had a season's ticket. Took a heart attack and died at the game. He survived the Second World War.
Well, on that note, we'll call the meeting to order. So I'll begin by acknowledging that the Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. So could I get an approval of the minutes from June 12th? Councillor Kent, second by Councillor Mancini. Oh, okay, it's second by Councillor Mancini will stand. All those in favor? Aye. Minutes are done. So approval of the order of business, additions and deletions. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Chair. The clerk's office has received no request for additions or deletions.
Thank you. Would someone like to move the order of business then? Moved by Councillor Mancini, second by Councillor Kent. All those in favor? Aye. Our order of business is approved. So business arising out of the minutes, there is none. Do we have any conflicts of interest to declare tonight? No, I think you're not the first one to have that particular conflict. We'll say no conflicts that disqualify anyone. Motions of reconsideration, none. Motions of rescission, none. We have no deferred business. There are no tabled matters, which brings us to the main item on our agenda tonight, case 10.1.1. This would be the rezoning for 3 and 5 Bruce Street and the development agreement for 3 and 5 Bruce Street. So we'll start this evening with the presentation from staff, and then after that, anyone from the public will have a chance to present. Members of the public can speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. We ask that you keep your comments respectful, on topic, and directed to be the chair. The clerk will hold up the yellow sign when 30 seconds are left, and then the red sign when your time has expired. So with that, we'll go ahead and start with Ms. Langell.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of Harbour East Marine Drive Community Council. My name is Thea Langell. I'm the Manager of Planning Applications. The planner on this file this evening was not able to attend, so I am stepping in. So I will do my best to walk you through the presentation that we have for you this evening. And this is regarding planning application 2023-00376, and this is for 3 and 5 Bruce Street in Dartmouth. A little bit of context in terms of the proposed development. The application has been submitted by Teal Architects and Planners, and the location, as I've indicated, is at 3 and 7 Bruce Street in Dartmouth. The proposal is for a 7-story mixed-use building, and the type of planning application is a rezoning and a development agreement. There's also a discharge to the existing development agreement that is required, but that is not within the scope of this community council. That can be managed through more of an internal process, which following this public hearing would go to the CAO for signature and approval. A little bit of site context. So this is a property that is in Dartmouth, just off the Woodlawn Road and near Bruce Street, as you can see here in the slides, kind of across from the Woodlawn Plaza Commercial Center. A little bit more context in terms of from a neighborhood scale. You can see here we have Bruce Street and Woodlawn Road. It is near a 5 and 6 story apartment building that is located with access, I believe, from Bruce Street. 5 stories along Bruce Street, and it's 6 on the Woodland Road. Again, another photo showing some context, showing the access to these 2 properties from Bruce Street. And here you can see that multiple unit building that I had referenced, and one of part of the subject site, which is the white single unit dwelling shown there, that would be subject to demolition, and I believe that is 5 Bruce Street. So that's some neighborhood context of the proposed development. Now in terms of some overviewing of the planning policy. So we have our regional plan and subdivision bylaw. That is kind of that higher level planning documents that guide the population growth within HRM and the investment of services like transit, piped water, sewer, and where sewer should occur. The next layer that we have is called the community plan. In this particular situation, we are talking about the Dartmouth Municipal Planning Strategy and Land Use Bylaw. This outlines where and how different types of development can occur and some uses that may be allowed after community consultation and a decision of council. And that's what you're seeing here this evening, which is the consideration of a multiple unit dwelling that does require a rezoning to an R3 and then a consideration through a development agreement. From a land use bylaw, the next layer, that is when we have that document specifies what can be approved without a council consideration or seeking feedback from the public. That's what we like to refer to as our as of right process. So just being able to obtain a permit. Here's a quick overview of the planning process in total from the complete application through to tonight's public hearing. And there's also a 14-day appeal period. In terms of the site itself, it does have municipal water and sewer. The property is zoned R1. It's within a residential designation, meaning that overall area is intended for residential development. The existing use right now is residential and there's a retail commercial building. And for council's consideration, the enabling policies are IP1C and IP5. We'll do a quick overview of the policy considerations. So these are the things that council needs to give consideration to when looking at a multiple unit dwelling or an apartment building in this general location. Consideration should be given to whether or not the proposal is compatible and consistent with adjacent uses, and as well as the development in the surrounding area. Consideration should be given to buffering, landscaping, access controls, and also to ensure that there's a reduce of any incompatibilities, and to ensure that the proposal is not considered to be an obnoxious use. So with all those things into consideration, what you see is a proposed development agreement in your staff report package that puts in development controls that will address these issues, such as the type of use, multiple unit dwelling, the number of units, and in this particular case, it is a 7-story building with, I believe, 78 units, underground parking, and there's also provisions for underground parking from Bruce Street, which is the access to the driveway. We're also looking at drainage matters and whatnot, stormwater management that is managed through the development agreement as well. So again, we've kind of touched on that the applicant is seeking a rezoning of 3 Bruce Street and 5 Bruce Street from the R1 to R3. And this is to allow for a 7-story, 78 unit residential building with some commercial space on the main floor or on the ground floor and 40 parking spaces below grade. I believe the applicant will be able to go into a little bit more detail about the building design overall, but some of the key aspects for council's consideration is the entrance into the building. There is a Bruce Street entrance, which has a setback and a street wall and the ramp to the parking. There's also a street wall and a step back and some sidewalks that would go along the, I believe, the Woodlawn side as well. But again, aspects to the building, I imagine, will be provided by the applicant after this presentation. In terms of public engagement for council, we did do notification out to about 25 residents. We received 1 phone call. There was also an online survey that was available through Shape Your City. We did receive 1 reply, 1 respondent to that survey, and we did have about 200 unique website views. In terms of the comments that were collected through that 1 survey, there was some concerns with regards to pedestrian safety and vehicle access, the overall underground access, the access to the underground parking. There were some general concerns about traffic in the area as well, and the increased height and the potential impact that could have on shading of homes within the Glen Court and Hilton Drive area. So as a result of that feedback, the underground parking ramp had been moved slightly to address those concerns, as well as some sun and shade studies were prepared to demonstrate that there would not be an impact on homes within the Glen Court and Hilton Drive area. So some key elements to the development agreement that have been placed in the in the development agreement that's attached to the staff report is there's architectural requirements. Elevation drawings have been attached to ensure that the building, if approved by council, is built in the form and character that was shown to the public and council. There's requirements for a landscaping plan. There's provisions for lighting, parking, and signing. And requirements are also placed in there for the completion of an environmental assessment study in accordance with provincial regulations, given the historical land use that was on the site, I think, in the past. Also, the development agreement outlines things that can be considered as a non-substantive amendment. So that's a change to the agreement that can be made without a formal public hearing. This can either occur through the development officer of community council, as outlined in legislation. And in this particular case, what the development agreement has identified as non-substantive matters are changes to the landscaping measures, conversion of that first level commercial to residential, and some signage provisions. There's also the ability to do time extensions for the commencement and completion of construction in the agreement. Those are all the items that have been identified as non-substantive. And it's staff's recommendation, as outlined in your staff report that you have in your package today, that the staff recommendation was arrived after a detailed analysis of all the relevant policies in the regional plan and the municipal planning strategy, specifically the Dartmouth MPS and LUB, and staff is recommending approval of the rezoning to R3, and then the entering into a development agreement to allow the 7-story multiple unit dwelling as shown in your staff report in attachment A and B. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Are there any questions of clarification for Ms. Langton from members of council?
Very good substitute.
Okay, so no questions of clarification. We'll move on to the applicant presentation, which would be Tom Amoldi. You would have 10 minutes. Once we clear the deck, of course.
Yes. Just misplaced the mouse, so bear with me. No, the mouse has disappeared. There we go. I think I've had it. So this one here and from the beginning. Nice to advance there.
Let me see if I can handle the equipment. Just one sec. I can. Good. So thank you, members of council. I'm Tom Amodi from Teal Architects and Planners, and we've been working on this project for the best part of 3 years now. As Ms. Langell said, we have a 7-story building with a commercial main floor. The commercial main floor also includes some community rooms, which I can show you in a moment, and has quite a number of support facilities for the residents in the area. Also, as you can see on this introductory slide, there is a large terrace for public use, for use of the people in the building, I imagine, but they could invite friends or, family to come up there and have some events if they wanted to. It's properly landscaped at the edges, and there's landscaping also along the street edge, along the sidewalk edge as well. So this is the building in context, very kind of blocky context drawing. So you can see the mall, Woodlawn Mall, at the end of the street. You can see the different sizes of houses. Those are just blocked in for massing. They have more detail than you can see there. And then there's this 5-story building basically next door. The building at the back is the Money Mart. This is a view standing just behind the 5-story building. You can see that the new building is not, overly impactful in terms of height on the left side of the street. And we did do a shadow study that was already mentioned, which is here. So I can show you that clearly. At the bottom right-hand corner is the worst condition, which is in the shortest day of the year. And you can see that the shadow that is thrown is actually mostly by the building that's already there. So our building does not add any really unnecessary shadows, except for two houses on the right-hand side of your screen in the shortest day of the year and in that season around a month either side of it. But the rest of the time, the building is not throwing bad shadows on anything, in Bruce Street. Excuse me. Front elevation of the building, you've seen this in the 3 dimensions. If you have any questions, we can come back to it. The side elevations of the building facing on the east and the west sides. This is a site plan, and you can see that the building covers almost the entire property with just a sort of a small concourse around it. And on the left-hand side, you can see we've moved the driveway as far away from Woodlawn Road as we possibly can. This is the parking level, and you can see that there's dedicated bike parking here, 2 elevators for the building, mechanical and electrical rooms, and all the parking required that has been approved. And this is the main level, which is the commercial, and you can see that at the back we have service rooms and a community room, and a large commercial area, which I think will be of major benefit to the neighborhood. 2 commercial areas, one on the left, one on the right, as you're walking into the building. Whoops. Oh, here we go. Typical floor. I mean, each floor is slightly different. This is the floor on level 2. There are quite a number of very compact units in this building. Some are studio apartments, some are 1-bedroom apartments, and some are 2-bedroom apartments. We noted that this is a really important area for seniors to retire. And if you go up Baker Drive, you'll see all of that, obviously. And we think that this building will, be part of that kind of seniors community that's up on Baker Drive. That's the intention of our client. This is levels 3 and 4, slightly different layout, but fairly well the same kind of unit mix. And this is levels 5 to 7. Again, slightly different layout, but a similar unit mix. There's more larger units on this upper level. And then here we have the total unit count and the number of square feet per unit and the total in the building. So if you have any questions about the unit count, I can actually, go into it. But, as it was said, there are 78 units in the building, is my understanding. So that's the presentation. Any questions?
Thank you. So questions of clarification, Councillor Mancini?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tom, thanks for the presentation. I appreciate it. Some of these questions I have, I'm not sure if you can answer it, and maybe more of the owner, but I'm just gonna, I've got about 6 here, 5 or 6 to shoot off. I'm curious why you landed on 7 stories. Was it related to the shadowing and stuff? Is there any EV charging or at least the wiring to set it up within the building? The 2 commercial spaces, has there been any, has the owner reached out or have any prospects for those 2 commercial spaces? Or at least you talked about the benefit of those commercial spaces. Any thought of what type of commercials might be in there?
Right.
Does the owner have any sense of what the rent range might be? And my last question, if approved today, when's the intent to start and how long of a build? Did you get all
Okay.
those? I can repeat them if you want to, Tom. Go ahead.
Right.
Sorry.
7 stories was decided. We were originally designing a 5-story building.
Okay.
our owner, our client, did some research and talked to other landowners in the neighborhood. And he became convinced that there would be a market for more units than we had in a 5-story building.
Okay.
So that was the reason for the 7 stories. We had a lot of conversations with the planning people.
Mhm.
We were wondering whether they could be 8 stories.
Sure.
In the end, I think, and Thea can back me up, I hope, we said, the planning department basically said 7 was the limit. So that's a kind of a negotiated number.
Okay.
In terms of EV parking, there will be EV parking.
Oh, good. Yeah.
We don't have the numbers yet, but it's probably going to be at least 2, maybe 3.
Yep, good.
In terms of the, what was the other question?
Commercial
Sorry.
space?
Commercial space, yes. We always had some kind of like a neighborhood store in mind, like a 7-Eleven or something like that, because
Okay.
we know that in the Woodlawn Mall, there's one food store.
Right.
And that closes.
Yeah.
And so this would be open in the evenings. This would be open, like basically all the time.
Okay.
The other one could be like a medical clinic. We are talking about like a physiotherapist or a chiropractor or something like that. So those were the conversations we've had so far with the owner.
Okay. Rent and.
I do not know,
That's okay.
I'm sorry, I just do not know what the rent ranges are. They are going up all the time,
Yeah, yeah.
as you know.
Yeah.
But I have no idea
Okay.
what he's intending.
And the last question is, do you know if approved tonight, when would they start and how long will the build be?
I think the intention is to find a financial partner and to start ASAP. And I think for a building of this size, the construction period would be something in the order of 2 to 2.5 years. Hopefully a little less than 2.5, but in the 2-year range.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are my questions.
Just
Thanks, Tom.
substantial excavation, as
Yeah,
you
of
can
course.
see.
And it is Dartmouth.
And it is, yeah.
Yeah.
And it is non-combustible, so it's more than likely a concrete frame or a steel frame,
Right.
fire rated. So it's not simply a wood frame building any longer.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you, Councillor. Tony's asked them. If you have.
Yeah.
you,
Oh, thank you.
Councillor Brady?
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the presentation. Just a question about the bedrooms. So I see only 1 bedrooms and studios are available in your building. Is that to try to attract kind of the demographic of seniors that you're
I think
you're going for?
when I'm saying he, I'm talking about my client.
Right.
I think his analysis is that a lot of seniors have lost a partner. I think his other strategy is that 1 unit somewhere will be a rental unit that will be open for people to come and family members to come and stay. So he's going for small units which are affordable.
Okay.
And that was the strategy for doing that.
Keeping them affordable then.
Keeping
So
them
smaller
affordable,
means
yeah.
more affordability. Okay, that's great. And a parking would be under the building? I think I missed
It's
that.
completely under the
It's
building.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. So now we would come to the public portion.
Thank you.
Oh, my clerk's run away. I assume we don't have anyone signed up on the list?
Thank you, Chair. No pre-registered speakers.
No pre-registered speakers from the throngs that are here tonight. So we'll move to the open call for the audience. So I'll call 3 times. If anyone would like to come forward and present to us on this issue, you would have 5 minutes. Anyone would like to come forward and present to us on this tonight? Third and final call. Would anyone like to come forward and present on this? Okay. There's really no response. The next portion would be responses from staff and the applicant to anything that was presented, but we've not had anything presented. So I think we can skip to moving the public hearing. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay. Is there any? Well, we'll go to you, Councillor Mancini. What is your wish?
I'll put the motion on the floor if you like.
Sounds good.
I'd like to put the following motion on the floor that Harbour East Marine Drive Council 1 adopt the amendment to Schedule A of the Land Use Bylaw for Dartmouth as set out in Attachment A of the staff report dated May 3rd, 2024. 2, approve the proposal development agreement, which will be substantially of the same form as set out in Attachment B. And 3, require that the agreement be signed by the property owner with 120 days or any extension thereof granted by council on request of the property owner from the date of the final approval by council and any other bodies as necessary, including applicable appeal periods, which is later. Otherwise, this approval will be void and obligations arising hereunder shall be at the end. So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. So, Tom, you mentioned it's been 3 years. It's been a long time. There's been lots of zigging and zagging, and we are here today anyway, so we should be happy about that. Colleagues don't have any issues with this building. There's retail nearby, there's commercial nearby. The building's going to have it. It's compatible with other apartments nearby. We heard the answer, well, why the 7 stories? I received 0 comments from neighbors, opposition or support. That works well. Glad to hear the applicant listened, and made some changes. That always is very pleasing. I'm always frustrated when we have an application of zoning or development agreement and concerns are brought up, and sometimes some architects will stand in the ground and not make adjustments. Tom, you're no stranger to these chambers, and so you made adjustments. I think that's a good thing that you're listening. I support what's on the floor. I think these are the types of developments that we need. We need many of them, just like this one. And, I do think that there's a lot of people in that area, even beyond that area into the Port Wallace and Montebello area, that would be interested because they want to stay in the community. And, they maybe don't want to go as far as, no disrespect to Baker Drive, they don't want to go as far down the street. They want to stay closer, and this is closer. So these are the types of buildings we need. So I support the motion that's on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to support this. I'd just like to add that I know that Woodlawn is one of our oldest residential communities in the Dartmouth area. So it does, I think, what Councillor Mancini just mentioned, that people would want that kind of opportunity to stay within what they consider to be their neighborhood. I know some communities are really protective of things, and Woodlawn is one. I would like to remind, I guess, if you could remind the applicant that intersection of Baker Drive and Woodlawn Road and Manhattan Road and Portland is very, very busy and at times very, very chaotic. We at the municipality have a functional plan that we're working on to make improvements, but we're not there yet. An application like this is, I'm envisioning a lot of activity, obviously, on your site, and you're not going to necessarily have a lot of room for the extra big equipment. And so I want to just ask to be mindful of the volume of traffic and the traditional ebbs and flows that are happening there, because if things tend to get bogged up, they're going to blame that project. And I just want to have that as sort of top of mind as you go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. With Council's indulgence, can I ask a question from here?
Absolutely.
Just wanted to ask Thea, the bedroom count piece that Councillor Purdy raised, if this was center plan area, there'd be a required unit split. Does that not exist in this area in terms of like the unit mix?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That is correct. There's not a specific requirement for a unit mix through policy in this area.
Okay, well, we need the housing, and not every building needs to fulfill those needs necessarily, but, it's good practice to have space for potential, for families and these kinds of things in buildings. And so I expect that'll be something we'll tackle in our suburban plan when that comes forward. And I think in terms of the suburban plan, this would be the kind of location that we'd identify and say, yeah, that makes sense in terms of a place for intensification, where it's in that kind of commercial node on a main street with access to transit and all that good stuff. So, so supportive of this, just wanted to ask that question. Thank you. So with that done,
Question?
question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? So that carries unanimously. Thank you, everybody. So now we'll move to the next item on our agenda, correspondence, petitions, delegations. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Chair. The clerk's office has received no correspondence for today's meeting.
Thank you. Does anyone of council have a petition? No. And we have no petitions for 11.2. 11.3, presentations, none. So public participation. This would be Collins hour here, or 5 minutes.
With your indulgence, I'll provide a couple of photographs there.
I think that's allowed.
Not pictures of you when you're 20 years old.
Huh?
Not pictures of you with your soccer jersey on.
I'm not hearing too good tonight.
I'm just being funny, trying to be funny.
Trying, yeah.
Or Laura Lee would say.
Laura Lee's favorite comment, you think you're funny, but you're not.
Colin May, 10 Dahlia Street. I was here last month talking about the danger to pedestrians in the common. I've provided photographs that I took yesterday. There's a scooter. Look at the size of that. Consider the weight of the scooter, the weight of the person driving it, the cumulative weight having an impact on any pedestrian that it may hit or just glance upon. I referred last time to section 66, subsection 6C of the Charter, which provides pedestrian priority, safe and comfortable pedestrian circulation, and in subsection D, the municipality shall work collaboratively with the federal and provincial governments and with the community. That's never happened in the past several years. Never happened since I initially raised this issue of the danger to myself six years ago, after I had a 12-day stay in North Vancouver Hospital recovering from a broken hip. It is worse now. In fact, I had a cyclist today stop by and talk to me because he thought I'd photographed him yesterday. He informed me that on the bridge, he has heavy built scooters going past him. He described it as flying past me. These are a direct threat, as I said, to pedestrians of any age and any ability. And so what I'm saying is, it's time for the council, not just Councillor Austin, but it's time for all members of council and the legal department to consider substantial changes as to what non-pedestrian forms of transportation are allowed in the common. None are allowed in the public gardens. We don't have public gardens in Dartmouth. We've got some nice gardens down this end. I don't have the money to hire a lawyer, but I'd seriously consider borrowing it, because pedestrians need you to clearly delineate who is allowed in the common on a mode of transport other than a baby carriage or the 2 feet, or the 1 feet, or a senior's mobility device. In fact, I think what we need is, for a period of time, we need somebody at the gates explaining to cyclists and people who use cycles or scooters, explaining to them what they can and cannot do, and explaining to them that in the grand scheme of things, they are secondary to pedestrians 24/7, 365. It shouldn't take me to persist at this. Councillor Austin knows that I've been at this ever since I came back from BC and encountered problems. As I pointed out last time, I'm deaf in one ear. In the past number of days, I've even noticed that my ability to hear in my right ear with a hearing aid, for some unknown reason, varies day to day. So let's see some action, let's see some education, and let's see some rules. And these rules would be put together in conjunction with section 66, subsection 60, where you are required to collaborate with the community. If you have any questions at all about the photographs or anything else, I'll be pleased to attempt to answer them.
With the
Thank you.
public participation, it's, you present, it's not follow-up, so it's offline that we could come talk to you about the pictures.
Well, as chairman, you can, with the consent of your colleagues, change that.
We'll talk
You know
offline.
that and I know that.
Thank you, Mr. May. Would anyone else like to present tonight? Would anybody else? In case there's someone hiding around the corner, would anyone else like to present? All right, that brings us to the end of public participation. So information items brought forward, none. We have no reports, no motions. There's no in camera. There are no added items. Does anyone have any notices of motion? There are no notices of motion. So the date of our next meeting is August 1st, 2024. I would take a motion to adjourn. Councillor Purdy, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. They may.
I'm pained in that.
I can do it for you.